Okay, so I'm here live today with Frie Pétré, founder of Qollabi. Frie, thank you for joining me. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about who you are and what you do?
Qollabi, what we're doing with Qollabi is we're making partner success predictable with mutual success planning. So what we basically do is we connect partner data and automate accountability, so people don't need to worry about getting things done in their partnerships. And Qollabi partners up with the best in the world, such as Deloitte, Atlassian, KPM, to make that happen.
Okay, awesome. So you're managing partnership relationships, and then that's interesting what you say about accountability. So when you're making agreements with partners working on collaborations, it's just enabling you to manage that process and the collaboration that you're going to do together, ensure that both sides are going to get their parts done.
Yeah, the way you can look at it is really looking at what happened with direct sales 15 years ago when CRM came into the market. Before CRM, there was no predictable sales motion in an indirect way. So what happened was different team members had their own Excel sheets. And if you asked leadership to predict what's coming up in the pipeline, well, they needed to kind of gather everything. It was super hard to predict the direct sales motion. Now, if you look at the indirect sales world, 75% of all world trade goes indirectly. The way that partnerships or indirect sales relationships are managed is pretty similar to that of the direct sales world 15 years ago. Everybody's working with their own spreadsheets, totally disconnected. And then when you ask leadership about what do you expect and what's coming up in terms of the impact of these partnerships, nobody knows. And that's probably the biggest issue on the highest level. It's so hard to predict the leading indicators, the efforts that we're putting into an indirect sales relationship. And so that is where we're after. Like our mission is really to build a model where you have the funnel in direct sales. We use OKRs to predict end results of a indirect sales relationship.
Okay, I love it. So, and making that kind of repeatable, predictable process for partnerships, because currently there's a problem in managing that. So, I love to see products that kind of solve a market problem. So, there's a really clear one that you've got there. How did you come up with this concept? Is this something that you were struggling with in business before starting Qollabi?
Yeah, that's very interesting, actually, because before Qollabi, I had my own management consultancy firm that I sold to Ernst & Young. And it was during that time that we were building these templates for our customers. And it was during that time, I mean, a lot of SaaS companies started like that, when, with an agency, being an agency yourself, and then making templates and then asking your customers, hey, what if we build this for you? And this is what we did. Now, the only thing that was really remarkable, at least one of my biggest lessons, was that I thought when I sold my company, like, hey, I should be doing something right. And then all of a sudden I moved from consultancy approach to a product approach. And I totally messed up, because I thought that me behind a flip chart telling the team what to do would be the right thing to do, because that's actually what I've been doing before. And actually the opposite was true. So I realized that I should shut up. The only thing that I can do is formulating hypotheses. Obviously, there's some market knowledge that can bring me some hypotheses, but then it's obviously the end user and customers and the data points around the usage and whether or not we are solving a true market value. So that was a pretty massive, humbling moment for me there.
How did you make that transition? Because if you're working as a consultant and you're used to selling, and I guess you're more sure of your solutions that you're proposing, and then you move into the product world where there's no certainties, you're testing hypotheses. What was that journey like for you, and how did you adapt or navigate from being a consultant to a product thinker?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of dimensions here, but the most important dimension, the two dimensions, are obviously the product methodology as such, how to go about product feedback, user feedback, deciding on when testing out new industries and so forth, and the entire delivery process behind it with the IT team. That's one thing. But the other side is, yeah, my lack of knowledge in the beginning of building a true IT dev team that requires all these different roles in order to make sure that your product is suitable for an enterprise context, because we started in the enterprise and it's just such a big job and there's so much to do that has nothing to do with the core of your product. and like balancing that out while not running out of money, because sometimes you're just like building for 3-4 months, SSO or some kind of security issues that need to be fixed before you can even go live. And that was really juggling, and also understanding what the core capabilities are, the importance of having an architect in your team, the importance of testing, and the importance of making sure that your front end and your back end is scalable. All these things as a non-consultant, it was kind of a tough first year's period in order to acquire that knowledge. And the way I went about it was trying to call in the help of people who have done it before. And that is, for me, I couldn't have not done it without having people that basically were mentoring me on that level.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, so getting some advice, learning a lot, and learning from people who've been there and done it. Where is Qollabi now? So how long has it been since you started the business? And can you tell us just about like how you've grown and where you're at now? Give us a bit of a picture of the company.
Yeah, so we are now we are like in business for 4 years now. As I said, the first years is really iterating with our early customers, our innovative customers, to go from that prototype to a minimum viable. And now we're really in a scaling mode where we are internationally now working for the largest companies in the world, both in the US as Europe. We have the largest telco companies in Europe that are using Qollabi. We're here in the US where we're working with the most innovative customers out there. And so the team is around 25 people. And one of the most important things that is happening now that is really a massive pivotal moment for us is that we are building a tremendous partnership with Deloitte across countries. And there again, it's kind of contradictory that in the beginning, I just needed to leave alone consultancy because that was not really what the product needed. And now we see basically that our product thrives around management consultants who basically are there to help customers to go from point A to point B. And that is what OKRs do. Basically, you start with the end in mind, you define what success looks like, and then you make sure that you align all the different silos in our organization to make that happen in a way that leadership can really help the teams towards that end result and keep track of time. And so in terms of where we are in our journey, we're really now preparing ourselves for that even more international footprint to be that category leader of this new category that we call BRM, Business Relationship Management Software.
Fantastic. Okay, so it's been 4 years. It looks like you've had some really good growth in a few moments where you've really validated your idea. What sounds interesting to me is that even though you said you were coming from this consulting background and then you moved into the product world where you felt uncertain and you had to test hypotheses, you were still able to bring industry knowledge from your industry domain and build a product that really does work for consultancy firms.
Yeah, and so what is interesting in that perspective, like it has been it has always been our, let's say, our mode, which is that we take abstraction of any industry. So we are active in 3 industries: financial services, IT, and telco. And so it has been our mode that we could take abstraction and build a model and a product that is applicable in any industry. And customers basically think when we we're going conversation with them, they believe that we build a product for their industry. So this is a good thing. At the same time, it's obviously also a challenge because we don't know the industry like in the nitty-gritty details. And when you launch a new product in a new category, it's not only the visionaries that you need in order to sell your product, but you also need these more early majority type of users who just like to keep on working in the way they have been working before. So the product also needs to add value to them. And that kind of combination and making that classical crossing the chasm path is so critical, and it has been a challenge. But we were able to make that chasm, and obviously consultants really help us to just take that same narrative, which is basically, are you ready for the new distribution operating model of the future, dear customer? And do you have everything in place? And that's not only technology, it's also about, do you have the right capabilities? The market is changing. Do you have the right process automation in place? And so all these elements around that product and making sure that you can address the different target groups based on their basically their digital maturity and willingness to adopt new technology. That juggling between all these forces has been pretty much indeed a challenge, and it's very rewarding the moment you see that all the different pieces start to work in the same direction.
Yeah. So would you say that you've created a category with Qollabi? I mean, are there many other companies or competitors in this space, or do you think you innovated for something that solves a problem that's there, and maybe you've created a category within that?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, OKRs, obviously, they already exist. I mean, they're large companies, big unicorns that have been, have been acquired also lately the last years. Companies that basically build an OKR model for internal teams. Talking about Ally, 15Five, Lattice, these kind of companies. Well, it proved their value. OKRs work. If you implement an OKR methodology in your organization and you use the technology to make sure that everybody's looking at these same OKRs, it works and it creates tons of value. Well, that is basically that proves that there's tons of value in applying that methodology. The only thing that we did was take that successful methodology and model and use it in an external business relationship context. And if you then know that 75% of all world trade goes indirectly, and that there's tons of relationships going from a distributor, a reseller, an alliance, there's so many different types. And if you're able to take abstraction of these different in indirect sales models, well, then we believe, and that's basically why we exist. It's like, well, then you're able to create tons of value, not only for one organization, but two organizations at the same time. And that's basically that new category that uses a existing successful methodology, applying it in another market segment.
Great. Yeah, I see how you can really bring, so you kind of innovate within a space that can benefit from an existing system.
Exactly.
I just want to spend our last couple of minutes to talk a bit about your sales approach, because in a competitive space in SaaS right now, where we've got products trying to become as self-service as possible, but then you also have, say, you're selling to enterprise and you have something that's a bit of a new category creator. How do you approach sales? Do you have a longer kind of top-down sales cycle selling into enterprise? How does that look for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting question. And I think there are already two different dimensions in your question. And the first one is really about the go-to-market model in a specific market segment, such as enterprise. The other part of it is, well, the self-serving model becomes more and more like a standard or something that is really working. But that is also dependent on the market segment. And then the second part would be then, well, is your team ready to serve for that? And is your product ready for that? And so just to provide you some context, how we figured out how to approach it was, first of all, we started enterprise. Sales cycles are super long. We started direct. And now we figured out that our sales approach in the enterprise is go direct with a partner where possible. So that partner is super important. And as soon as we are dealing with customers that have over 5 or 10 channel managers, partner managers, as soon as that happens, there's always Qollabi will be solved with a partner, because we don't believe in just pushing the technology. The change management, the methodology, the way of working that you want to install in the day and age is way more important, or as important as the technology as such. So that's our go-to-market there. Now, talking about self-serving PLG motions and down market, we figured 2 years ago, we got some traction from smaller companies, starting teams that are building their first partnership teams, SaaS company series A, B, C, and so forth. And what we realized was that they loved the idea of automating and making it predictable and providing templates and playbooks. And we were so excited. So, like, there's so many companies out there that we can help. And we started a beta program. And what we've realized was that what we thought was an easy to use product that our enterprise customers said, we love it because it's so easy to use. The demands of that lower end market end were so different. And our product was at that point not ready yet to serve it. And what I also realized was, well, the way they would like to buy is so much different from a direct enterprise context. They don't want to talk to an AE before they just try it out, and it's really about the onboarding process that should be just flawless. So we figured out that there's such a different world behind that, and it's so dangerous to shift all your resources right away to a new segment. Even if you're in a couple of million of ARRs, it's really, I mean, at least that's my conviction, it's super important to phase that out really well, to have the vision to build, and that's what we do now. We have the vision for every new feature that we develop. Our vision is, well, let's think about how we can conceive it so it will be self-servable. It would be ready for a PLG motion, but we are also aware that in order to get these down market like PLG motion started, it also goes into a product marketing approach that it's different in terms of acquiring top of the funnel, and also in serving them, and also in building the right in onboarding features. So what we consider now, extending our beta program, get as much product feedback as possible in that new market segment, keep on evolving, like let's say 20% of our time, product time, R&D time, we do that. As soon as we have the traction, we can basically use that to accelerate in the next funding round and build that new market segment and go to market motion with that investment.
Yeah, oh, I love it. It's I find it really interesting hearing you talk about that, because you're kind of working and creating your playbooks that are right for your unique situation as you go, taking best practices from here, but really you're creating something unique as you do with your processes. Hey, Frie, I know you've got a hard stop, so thank you for talking with me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been awesome hearing about your journey with Qollabi and everything so far. How can people check out information or follow you or check out Qollabi? Where would you point them to?
Yeah, I would say just follow me on LinkedIn, Frie, Frie, Pétré, Pétre. You can always obviously go to our website, Qollabi.com. Feel free to send me an email, free@qollabi.com as well. There are different ways to find me. But I thank you so much, Peter, for having me. I enjoyed the conversation, the way you set this up, the way you organize it, the way you ask the question. It's thumbs up, man, and keep it up with the community, because it's a hell of a job to keep that going. So I'm really impressed with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Frie, and thanks for being a part of it. I'll see you around.